Welcome to yet another episode of Unlock Women, the money series brought to you by African Bank with, of course, the gorgeous Dork Sitole
and the beautiful Kanya Asosibo.
And we're talking money.
Good to have you back.
Good to have you back. I mean, I think there's something that is in the air when it comes to us and our guests with the coordination
dress code
week and week.
We just need to declare that we don't talk over the phone to say uzoqoka intombi,
but it works out.
It always
really
works out.
So let's start by saying thank you so much for giving us time. Welcome to you. And this is Unlock Women, where we're going to be having nice, flowing and inspiring conversations. So let's first say welcome before I introduce you, of course, to our viewers.
Thank you so much, Kanya. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, so if you're wondering who's joining us, well, this gorgeous, I'd like to, refer to them as dark dandies. This gorgeous dark dandy that is joining us today is Yamkela Khoza Kyakati. She is, importantly, a mother. She is a businesswoman. She is an author, and she's also a farmer. Such an interesting spectrum of hats that you wear.
An amazing combination.
From a cap all the way through to a sporty,
Yeah.
So once again, welcome to you, and thank you so much for giving us time to engage with you here on Unlock Women.
Thank you, Kanya.
I think let's just jump straight into it.
Let's do that.
Let's do just that. Tell us more. Uyamkela intombi yaphi. Your story is one that I found to be quite fascinating, because a lot of people are usually the opposite of how you tell the story. I always say I'm Swati by blood, Zulu by socialization, but your story is slightly different. So let's start there.
So I am Zulu by blood and Khoza by association. Or by, what did I say?
Socialization,
earlier? Socialization. I can't remember the word I used
Orientation.
earlier. Orientation, yes. So my father is Zulu, but he grew up in Eastern Cape. And I also grew up in Eastern Cape in Montfort. It's a very small town in the Eastern Cape, KwaBhaca.
Nice.
So ndikhuliswe ndintombi yombhaca. And then when I was 15 years old, I moved to Johannesburg. Then I finished my high schooling here. Then went to Wits. And
you're Wits.
I was actually in the same class with Dork.
Gives you the edge.
Gives you the edge.
No matter how much Kanya pays you or bribes you to tell her how I was like at school, so please don't dish it out. I just have to put it out.
I think we've got the Witsy Foundation. I did my stuff at Wits, so it's fine. I don't have to pay. She'll just change.
Yes, I was actually in the same class with Dork. I did media studies and then ventured into publishing studies, which is why in your introduction you said author and then you said businesswoman, because my business is actually in publishing and media. Got married, had kids, did the city life. And I realized, actually, this is not for me. And then my husband and I decided to buy a plot of land in the Val.
Yeah.
And that's where we do our farming now. So
wow. Yeah. When we were doing our makeup and we were talking about the various, roles that you play, and you're just like, for me, the biggest one and the most important one, everything else has to orbit around this one thing. The sun in my life is being a mother,
Yes.
So I want us to just talk more about that, right? Because a lot of people or mothers, right, or parents, they'll be like, yes, it's an important part of who I am, but I also want to be me. And you said something that I found to be so interesting to say, if a opportunity does not allow me to prioritize being a mother,
then I don't take that.
I don't take that. So for me, that speaks to a person who's very present, somebody who's very conscious in their parenting. So let's perhaps touch on that, conscious parenting. What does that mean? If there's a definition, or what does it mean to you, and how does that translate to real life practical things?
So it's funny because if you ask my family, if you ask my sisters, they will tell you that they never thought that I would be a mother.
Really?
What? Yes, because I was a go-getter. I finished my first degree and I went for the second one, and I finished the second and I went for the third one. And looking at me, you would say this person is going to be, in corporate. She's going to be the briefcase lady,
Yeah.
And for me, though, I don't know. I never thought motherhood as well. But at the same time, I never thought what other people thought of me.
Yeah.
I was just doing what I was doing at the time. I was just going where God was leading me at the time, right? And then got married. And then I decided, you know what, I want to stay about 5 years before I had kids, but I only stayed 3 years. And then when I fell pregnant, that's when I said, pause.
Yeah.
This is very important, and I remember I started going for parenting courses while I was still pregnant because I was like, I need to arm myself. I need to give myself tools as a mother and make sure that I raise this person well. So I started going for those parenting courses. I prayed hard. I started becoming very serious about my marriage as well because I was like,
wow. What are you saying for the past 3 years?
The past 3 years.
Listen, let's not go there. But I started becoming very serious about my marriage as well. My husband and I were like, listen, we can't bring a human being here and we are still like this, We need to be now serious about really building this marriage and respecting each other. Because I don't want my child to grow up and then one day she or he gets married and he's just not a whole being, not a wholesome being because this is what I saw at home.
Yeah.
And then we would have episodes where we're fighting, my husband and I would be so scared. I would be like, I need to stop this before I give birth. I need to be this perfect human being before I give birth. But no one never ever becomes a perfect human being, And I had to learn as I was parenting that you have a past baggage. You have past pains. You have past traumas that you are carrying, and all of us are. And whatever is brought into your hands, where God says, okay, now we need to heal this part. You need to focus on that.
Yeah.
Don't expect to be this perfect parent, this perfect human being for this child. Your child seeing your imperfections is also good as well, as long as they are not detrimental. Yes. But when they see that my mom is not a perfect human being and my mom is working towards correcting some of her past traumas and past pains and stuff like that. So that was a journey. It's still a journey. Past traumas follow you everywhere, just yesterday I was taking a bath and one of the past traumas presented itself while I was taking a bath. And I had to calm myself down, and I had to say to myself, okay, we still need healing here. We still need to healing here. So why am I bringing this background is that conscious parenting for me doesn't start with the child. Ooh. Most people always think, I need to teach my child this. I need to teach my child this. I need to make sure that my child doesn't have this problem. For me, it starts with me. Yeah. What is the inner healing that needs to happen within me so that it comes out? And when I teach it to my child, it's something that I've already, it's a lived experience, and that's what I do. As well. I grew up, so my grandmother raised me up until I was 15 years old, and then I moved to Joburg, like I said earlier on, and my parents took over from there. And I think most of us know that our parents used to shout, you know? Like you do something wrong, you're going to be shouted at. Yeah. And that's what I did to my daughter as well. And I had to go back to her and apologize. Whenever I shout, I have to apologize and say, I'm sorry, baby. Shouting is wrong. Yeah. What mommy just did right now is not right. And mommy is working on it. And I give her permission to say, when I shout at you, you can actually tell me and say, mommy, you're shouting. Even if you are wrong. Because most of the time as parents, we think, you can't tell me anything when you are wrong.
When you're wrong.
It's like when you are reprimanding a child, the child needs to be like this and not say anything. I've given my child to say, permission to say, when I'm shouting at you, you have the right to tell me that, mommy, you're shouting, you know? So for me, conscious parenting is being intentional, is being present and in your life before the child, but also being intentional with your child. What do I want for my child? And what are the steps you plan? What are the steps that I'm going to take to make sure that I achieve whatever I'm dreaming for my child?
You have said
a mouthful.
A mouthful. You've said a mouthful, but
mouthful of
you know,
wisdom.
and the thing, Yamkela, about, you know, as I listen, you know, to you speak, I'm angabazi about you and conscious parenting and about how seriously you take parenting. It's clear, it's communicated and clearly so, because I think it's so profound and important that you say, you know, conscious parenting starts with you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the things, as you mentioned, the traumas, right? It's the little girl, the little boy in you. So you need to parent yourself the way that you would have liked to be parented so that you can heal whatever that is, and then you can course correct from there. So I just, number one, I must say I really commend you.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic, and I'm so glad that we have you on this platform to touch on that, because that filters then to all other areas of our lives, how we engage with people.
Exactly. How we engage with money.
How we engage with money.
Yes.
You know, how we engage with money. Ka-ching. You know, how we engage with money.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really fascinating that for you, the story starts there. And also just, you know, before I hand over to Doric, at such a level of there's so many social ills, right? But that's because we're not willing to self-reflect.
Yes, exactly.
And we know culturally, ukuthi, saying shilo, saying she.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So to be able to course correct and say, listen, we've taken this path, but it's not working out for us. How do we then amend this thing so that we can move and progress, you know, with positive growth? So for me, I'm in awe. I'm actually in awe of you right now.
Yes, money. So I know Kanya mentioned when we're doing the introduction about the fact that you're an author.
Yes.
And you've written 15 books. So we're saying well done to you, madam.
Yes. To start and finish writing.
And she's written 15, which is such an amazing accolade that you have there. But also talking about a more recent book that's aligned with money. And you wrote Sanda Learns a New Word, Budgeting.
So every day, new word.
Yes, and this book was published in 2022.
2022. Yes.
So tell us a bit more about this book. And I like where you started, because the one word that just kept flicking in my head was self-awareness. And how our past experiences have an impact on our adulthood.
Exactly.
So talking about this book, let's talk about the inspiration behind it. What made you come up with just, you know, a book that talks about budgeting specifically when it comes to children? So usually when we start the show, we like our guests to also mention some of the things that they went through as children when it comes to money. You know, certain things that were said to you, phrases that you think had an impact on your own mindset and your relationship with money. So take us there, Uguti. When you were growing up, here, you know, because I'm trying to see if there is a link in terms of your childhood.
There is.
And the budgeting. And budgeting. Yes, where's the link there? You know, maybe take us back in terms of your childhood.
So I mentioned earlier on that my grandmother raised me.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the deep rural areas. I always say to my friend, she's from Limpopo, and she took me home and she said she's from rural areas. I said to her, this is rural.
We are Zul.
This is not rural, you know. So I grew up in a seriously rural village, where for power, you need to go to the forest, your teza, you come back with wood. That was our power. There was no electricity. You know, for water, you have to go to the river. That's the kind of a village that I come from. So you can also imagine that I come from a very poor background, right? So my grandmother was raising not just me, but my cousins as well.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of us at home, and our parents were in Johannesburg looking for jobs. So we grew up in a home where, it was hand to mouth, basically, you know. And so every time you say to my grandma, they need this at school, you knew that. In fact, sometimes you wouldn't even tell her because you knew what the answer was going to be. You know, and it's not said in a manner of, you know, it's you can see the frustration that. So what that communicates is that money is a frustrating thing.
Sure.
You know. Like every time you bring money, and this is not even, it's subconscious. You're not thinking this, you're not sitting down and thinking money, but subconsciously, your subconscious, what you're storing in your subconscious is that money is a frustrating thing.
Yeah.
And when we speak money, there's anger, you know? And money is also scarce, you know? Because money is scarce. So then, as you grow up, you have this poverty mentality, you know. Because I mean, now I've got 3 degrees, I've got jobs, but you journey the world with poverty mentality, you know. Some of us will either not spend too much and say, if I spend, I'm going to be poor.
It's going to be finished.
Or we're going to spend too much and say, hey, I grew up poor.
Finally.
I grew up poor. It's a new Swiss.
Yeah.
You know?
You overdo it. Uzwise into debt.
Exactly, into debt, you know? Luckily for me, when I left Eastern Cape and I came to stay with my parents, my mom was a street vendor, but my mom was a saver. My mom saved, you know, and she didn't teach me. And that's another thing that I do with my daughter, with my kids. I always say my daughter because she's 7, the other ones are still very young. But that's what I do with my daughter as well, to communicate, to talk about money, to be intentional. So with my mom, I just knew that she was saving, but I didn't know the techniques to saving, right? So then I started thinking about money consciously when I was in varsity. And this friend of mine says to me, she was a spender. And she said to me, how do you save so much, you know? And I was not saving and being conscious about, I was just saving because my mom was a saver. And I said to her, I actually don't know. And she said, think about it, you know? And then we started journeying back to my grandma, back to my mom. And I said, my mom was a saver. And she said, that's it. That's why you can save. Because she went back to her childhood and at home, they were just spenders.
Wow.
They were just spenders. And I really appreciated my mom at that time because I realized that if my mom was not a saver, I was going to be exactly like my friend and be a spender. My friend she was a student, but she had accounts.
True words.
And, you know.
Is that even spending?
You know, so that really helped. And so that's how this book came about. Because the books that I wrote before this, they were not about money. They were just about your identity as a Black child, right? But this one, I was like, you know what? Actually, it's good that we're writing about being a Black child, knowing yourself as a Black child, appreciating your kinky hair and all those things. But you can appreciate yourself until you are blue on the face if you're not going to own the means of production and have healthy money habits. We will always speak the same thing about the Black child, that we are always behind. And our children cannot have the same dialogue as us when it comes to owning means of communication, being part and participating in our economy, you know? And so that is why I wrote this book for my children, but for the generation that is coming after us.
Sure. Look, by just listening to her, I'm just like, I need to buy this book and go read it. First, I'm reading it first before I read it to my daughter.
No, also the daughter
to talk to my inner child.
Do things in the house so that you can earn money to get the book. This is my book. This is my book.
And actually, you know, most parents, when they buy the book, they will say, I'm not buying the book for the child. I'm buying it for
No,
myself.
as you're talking, I mean, we spoke about the inner child earlier, and for me, we all have an inner child that also still carries those things.
Yeah.
Our mindsets, the words, we find it so difficult to delete those phrases. So I would definitely love to read it first before I give it to my daughter. But for someone who's already curious about the book, let's go into some of the details in the book. What do you deal with here? The aspects that you covered within the book. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about budgeting out there. Yes. But when we're talking about the book written by Yamkela, what are some of the issues that you deal with from the book?
So I always say that people always ask me, are you a financial advisor? I'm like, listen, I'm not. I'm just a mother who struggled with money, and I don't want my kids to repeat it, you know? So I'm taking my own mistakes about money, and I just want to make sure that my kids don't repeat that. So the book is actually a series, you know? So this is the first book in the series. Okay. So it's a series on financial education for children, right? Yeah. So this is the first book on budgeting. The main character in the series is Sanda, who is like any other young girl, you know, who's gonna, when you're at the shops, gonna say, Mommy, I want this, Daddy, I want this, you know, they're just pointing, they want this, they want that, you know. One day the mother is like, listen, Sanda, we don't just buy, you know, we budget. And she's like, what is that, you know? And the mother is realizing, there's a lot we need to teach here, you know? So then the book is about the mother saying to her, giving Sanda a challenge to say, you need to start making your own money and working for that money and budget so that all these things that you want, you can be able to buy them for yourself, you know? And obviously she's not happy about this because why are we changing things? Things have been nice with me just asking you to buy me things.
They appear.
Just like that.
And they shall appear.
Yes. You know?
I want.
So another thing that I've done with this book is that it's not a serious book. It's a funny book. So when I read it to the kids, they crack up because Sunday is like, I know where I'm going to get money from. There's an ATM. I'm just going to walk into the ATM and withdraw money.
Yes. You know? I think most children do that. My daughter will say, Mommy, there's the bank.
Yes.
And she names the bank.
Yes.
What do you mean?
There's the bank.
Yes.
There's the bank. Because to them, it's you just go and take.
You just go and take. And she's so happy that, listen, I'm so happy. Actually, there's the ATM. And the mother is like, no, you work for the money and then it gets deposited into your account, and then you've got a card where you go. So we're taking the child step by step process to say you first work for it, and then you save it, and then you deposit it into your account, and then the bank will give you a card, and with the card, then you can go to the ATM. But money is not for free. You work for it, you know? So that's what... So now she has to think, okay, how am I going to get money? And she's listing all the things that she wants. She wants a doll. She wants this. She wants to go horse riding and all those things. And so she's listing them and say, how much are they going to cost? Now that I know how much they are going to cost, I need to then work towards that money, raising that money. And she's thinking, how am I going to make that money? That's the end of the book. The second book is her now working, doing the work, raising that money. The third book is on her saving now, you know. First, they start on a piggy bank. And the reason why they have to start on a piggy bank, they need to feel the money. They need to feel the money. Because most parents say, no, my child is making money, but we just deposit it into her bank account. They need to, because the excitement when they see their money, when they count it, you know. I get a lot of parents who will send me pictures of their kids on the bed or on the table. They're counting them and they're so excited, you know.
Do they still make it kokokok where you put in your money?
Yes, they're still there. They're still there. Yeah. Still there. So then she puts the money into the piggy bank. And then another book is when now she's walking inside a bank. Yeah. Again, we want her to walk inside because you can do things digitally. You don't have to walk inside the bank. But we want her to walk inside a bank and have a conversation. I remember when my daughter walked inside a bank to deposit her money, she said to the person, the consultant, she said, I am here to make sure that you save my money because I've got a lot of money. At that time, she had 250.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
For her, that is a fortune.
And the consultant was like, oh, can I have some? She's like, ask my dad. My dad also has a lot of money.
and those statements, when we talk about language, because I was going to touch on that, to say, we talk about communicating with our children about money and being very careful not to use words like, there's no money.
Yes.
And then they go, but we're rich, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And on the inside, you're like, to you, I'm not rich yet, but what do I say to my child?
And this is what I say to my child. When I don't have money, I say to her, Nana, we didn't budget for this. So when
I love that phrase. That's a whole lot better than trying to actually
say asna mal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we rich or not rich?
You're always rich.
Because the moment you say yes, we're rich, it's like, so then what's the problem?
Yeah.
Let's go in and
but
buy.
she knows we are not rich, but at the same time, she doesn't think poor.
Yeah.
She just thinks, okay, we didn't budget for it. We need to raise money, budget for this thing, right? And then I can get it later. And most people get so shocked at the stores when I'm with my kids. You'll see other kids, Mommy, can I get this? Mommy, my kids will walk on the aisles. They're not going to ask for anything because they know they didn't budget for it.
Yeah.
And then when they want it, I say, take it from your money. And they're like,
they never want.
I'm going to save it.
Yes.
Wow.
You know?
That is such a beautiful way of
and sometimes
things.
I do encourage them to spend as well, because another thing, so my husband is learning to spend. My husband is a saver, and he doesn't want the money to leave the hand. And I say that's not healthy, you know. Money is a means to something, you know. And it also allows us a comfortable life. And so if you are going to keep on saving and you living like a pauper,
why
are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah.
You know? And you can see he's starting to be like, oh, okay, you know? But yeah, it's a conversation that I have every single time. When I teach maths using money.
It makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Makes sense.
No, I always say some people who struggled with maths, when it comes to money, you can't rip
Because
them off.
who doesn't want to have money?
Like, literally. It's like, I was never good with maths at school, but
my money.
Yes.
Trust me,
People know when you didn't give them the right change.
Yes.
They're not good with it.
Like, no.
I don't need a calculator.
I don't need a calculator.
No scientific calculator.
Yes.
This one I can do.
Because people, my 3-year-old now, this morning, as I'm preparing to come here, he says to me, let me go sweep my room so that I can get 6 rands. So when you clean your room, you get 6 rands. Let me go clean. I said, no, Auntie has already cleaned your room, because sometimes they become, you know. But at the same time, I'm also very aware that they must know that cleaning your room is something that you do. You don't have to get money for it, you know. So when I feel like it, I will give you money for cleaning your room. But for things that are not your responsibility, I don't, I will give you the money. That's how that's the conscious parenting that we try to do in our household when it comes to money.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, I wish we had the whole day.
I know, right?
to get some tips. And I think sometimes people always think, oh, well, angabi nomntwana mina, so this is not relevant to me. You have nieces, you've got nephews.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you are a parent somehow.
Definitely.
So maybe just before we let you go, for you to leave us with some tips. There are people who will be watching this trying to figure out, okay, what's my takeaway? You know, maybe 3 top things that you'd like to live with some ladies who are listening, or even men as well who are learning from this conversation, to say, hey, the conscious parenting.
Yeah.
And then uyihlanganise nendaba yemali.
Yeah.
What is the takeaway from today's conversation?
So the first one for me is that do not be lazy for your spiritual growth. And by spiritual growth, whatever religion you follow, but don't be lazy for your spiritual growth. By spirit, I mean your soul. The soul always needs healing, you know, always seek healing. Sometimes it can be expensive, but there are avenues that are not expensive at all. There are avenues that are for free, where you can go and sit with someone and say, I don't know what is wrong with me, but something needs healing on the inside, you know. So don't be lazy for your spiritual growth. That's number 1. Number 2, plan what you want to see in your household, whether you have a child or you don't have a child. If you know that one day I want to have a child, start planning. What do I want to see in my household? You know, what are the values that I want to be, that I want us to live by in my household, and start yourself. Don't start when you have that child, you know. Start yourself and say, I'm going to be this person. For example, for me, I started long ago and I said, I'm never going to bribe in my life, you know. Those are the things that I lived by, and others as well. I'm just giving an example about bribing. You know, you start living, it starts with you. Conscious parenting. You cannot teach the child what you are not living. So you need to live it, you know, and it must come from the inside out. You can't pretend. Your child will get you one day. They'll be like, you are lying. It's a scam. It's a scam, you know. So leave it. It starts with you. And lastly, I'll give an example with me. In my household, we are very big on books. We are very big on healthy money habits. So when it comes to books, you would think that I am very untidy. There's books everywhere in my house. On top of the couch, there's a book. In the kitchen, there's a book. On top of the table. And there's books everywhere. So that my kids never get intimidated by books. So when I'm also a homeschooling mother, but should one day they go to school, or when they're in grades 9 or 12 and they now really dealing with big books, they will never be intimidated by books, because it's something, exposed, you know. So whatever it is that you want to see in your house, expose your kids to it. Expose your kids to it. I'm also very big on spiritual growth. So we are Christians at home. When we do evening devotion, they fetch the Bibles. They fetch and they run. My daughter always says, no, it's me today who's sharing, you know.
Wow.
And when they pray, we make sure that, because sometimes the child will pray and the parent want to do a bigger prayer.
Yes.
No. They pray.
That was the prayer.
That was the prayer. Amen. We go to sleep, you know. So be present, be intentional. You know, when you see a spot, say, I need to deal with that spot. You know, if it means that you are still dealing with something, write it down to say, next, I need to go and deal with that spot. So with me, I need to deal with that spot with God. For someone else, it's with a therapist. For someone else, is whatever it is. But do the inner work.
I know. Sting part 2. I know.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking her house is literally the book kingdom.
You know, it is.
Everywhere.
And self-awareness. For me, it's you know, I'm as you said, I think the takeaway is definitely self-aware, because when they show you there's a spot, there's a spot there. A lot of times we don't check. We don't check.
You just put a makeup there.
I was just like,
that's makeup.
But can I just say this, ladies, before we close, that someone listening to this might think, oh, wow, her house is so perfect. Guys, I'm not perfect at all. Like I said, I shouted at my child, and only afterwards I'm like, you know.
Bring it in.
It's a journey until you die. It's a journey. So when you see yourself shouting or doing something that you're like, not supposed to do that, forgive yourself.
Yes.
Ask for forgiveness from the child or anyone who is in the house. I mean, this morning I told you I'm off sugar, and the withdrawal symptoms. I get
it's real.
I get irritated very easily. So this morning I'm asking my husband. I can't remember what I was asking, and I just got irritated, and I had to pick up the phone and say, "Honey, I'm really sorry that I shouted at you on the phone. I didn't shout, but I was just not nice. I just had a very bad tone, and I apologized. You know. So no one is ever going to be perfect. As you take this journey, never think that you will arrive. You will never arrive, but you just become better and better and better.
Hi,
amazing gems. So let's talk about this book. If people want to get a copy of this book or copies, how do they do that?
In all bookstores or at www.blankpagebooks.africa. Blank as an empty, blankpagebooks.africa. And you can order there, but it's in all bookstores as well.
Amazing stuff. Well, this is where we say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for the wisdom that you came to share with us today. And for those of us who are thinking about getting, like I said, I'm getting this for myself first. And yes, before we read it to our children, we're also talking to the inner child. And I will not forget the statement about how conscious parenting actually starts with you. And so we're saying goodbye to our guest, and we're talking about Yamkela Khoza. They've been trying to teach me.
It's fine.
They're doing well.
Yeah,
You know, yes, the effort is there. But thank you so much for joining us. And this is Unlock Women, the money series brought to you by African Bank. But don't forget to go to African Bank Channel TV on YouTube and actually like, share, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. Don't miss out on the amazing conversations we're having with women right here. And we are talking money with Kanya Sosibo
and Udoric Sitole.
Well, take care. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.